Good morning, everyone. Heather Connor here, and joined with, of course, my wonderful co-host, David Mathewes. We have a really special webinar for you guys today, and I've been lucky enough, along with a few select friends, to actually be able to view this full presentation that David was kind enough to pre-release and share with us. It's phenomenal. It's going to blow your socks off. Now, if any of you have struggled with time management, if any of you have ever had that thought of, here I am asking the same questions, answering the same questions again. Here I am performing this activity again. I wish I had an assistant. I wish I had a more trained assistant. I wish that I had more time. All these thoughts that you have. As we know, a lot of us can leverage our ability within this business through a couple of methods. One of them is through automations. David is a Zapier expert. I know that he doesn't actually have a title, but maybe I should get you a t-shirt that says that, or a hat. But phenomenal. The systems that he has built out for his other businesses, and now that he's incorporating for us here at GoodLife, and now that he's going to share with you today on this webinar, just be prepared to have your socks blown off. So, all right, David, I'm going to hand this over to you. I'm really excited for everyone to see what they are capable of. Oh, by the way, before I hand it over, this does not matter to what level your systems are built out, whether they are or they aren't. What you're going to see are different ways that you can utilize these options that David's going to share. But we're able to help you integrate in a lot of different ways, regardless of CRM, regardless of tools, etc. So hang tight, David. I'm so excited for everyone, and take this home.
All right. Thanks for the intro there. You talked me up a lot, so I hope we're not disappointing anybody today. So first of all, before we jump in, I know that there's a couple people on, so thank you for being here today. Heather is going to run chat, and then I have a couple check-in points built in because I know it gets overwhelming. So if you have any questions, just put them in chat and we'll answer them throughout or answer them at the end here. So, all right, let's go ahead and jump into efficiency. So if you've attended previous webinars and we've talked about perfect schedule, love languages, all those things, you know that Heather's love language is efficiency, even though that's not an official love language. And I think a lot of people in our world, their love language is efficiency, because nobody likes to go through a process with a vendor or a service provider and it's clunky and you have to always ask questions about what's going on, or you're wondering what's happening. So that's where this was all born from. In my business, I have struggled in the past I've struggled with providing an excellent experience to clients, and I'm going to share that journey as we go through this. But before we get started, most of my automations, or the automations we build, are built off Zapier. And that's only because Zapier is what I started with. And now in the marketplace, there are multiple companies that do automations connecting two pieces of software together to get you the result you're looking for. So I would say that if you're using something else, or you're considering using a different company or software, you can probably do what we're doing here. It's not tied only to Zapier. The next thing that I'm going to tell you is efficiency was really born out of a necessity in one of our businesses. So as you know, I sell real estate, GoodLife, we're with Real. But outside of that, I own a property management company here in Denver. Just for the record, I don't perform property management. I'm not involved in it. I just own the company. And I have taught the people who work in the company ways to make things more efficient and using automations, so that the owners have a good experience, our tenants have a good experience, and ultimately we are more profitable that way. So the efficiency leads to better revenue and profitability on the management company. And then also anybody who knows me knows that I'm married to Vanna, who runs the TC company, Summit Up TC here in Denver. We don't have any hard data that proves this, but I do think that we probably, or they probably do the most amount of transaction coordination in Denver. They're usually running somewhere between 300 and 400 files a month. I'm in the busy months, and then on the low months between 100 and 200 files. So from there, as they were building that company up, we had to figure out a way to automate a lot of things because we couldn't hire staff, in the busy season and then lay them off in the slow season. That's not a fair way to treat people, in your business. So we had to figure out a way to provide even workflow and consistency in costs and salaries and things like that. So that's where all of this came from. And I've pulled the different parts from the businesses to show you what we've done, to give you examples. And then also the goal is really to give you ideas that you can put into your business to make things more efficient. So let's go ahead and roll into it here. So this photo is very telling of who I was about this time last year. So from 21 into 22, I tripled my business. And while it was amazing, I'm not complaining about it, I didn't have anything set up that was different from when I was doing a third of the business. And so by July of 22, I was like overwhelmed. I wanted to quit my job and go do anything else because I was so frustrated with how behind I felt dealing with or working with clients or working with vendors. I felt like I was always 2 or 3 steps behind. And then my clients felt that. And so then they would want to talk to me to get me up to speed, which then bogged me down more. And I became the bottleneck in my business. And ultimately, it was my ego that got in the way. And as realtors or salespeople, I noticed that we all want to be involved and we all want to participate in every aspect of the transaction, and we should, but we usually slow things down because people are waiting for information from us or waiting for us to give them the go-ahead, or our clients aren't empowered to know that things are under control. So they're constantly calling or texting because they don't feel like they're getting the service they need. So like I said, this was me. What happened to me last July was I was working with a client who's a really, really good friend of mine. And we've known each other for 15 years. She actually introduced me to Vanna. And I've seen her through a marriage, a divorce, a new marriage. I've been by her side through her infertility journey. So we have a really, really close relationship. And last year, her and her husband were buying an investment property. And I tell you this because of our relationship, I'm able to speak more candidly with her and about her. So I'm not offended if she sees this. So when they were buying their investment property, we were working through a tough inspection. And the inspection, we were not getting a lot of progress. And she wanted to know what was happening. And I just told her, as soon as I know anything, I'm going to let you know. I promise you that. And we moved on for the day. Well, that afternoon, she called me and she was like, hey, what's the status of the inspection? And I was so frustrated with her because I was like, I literally told you 4 or 5 hours ago, as soon as I know anything, I'm going to tell you. We're going to work through this. And so we're talking about it. And since I know her so well, I was like, Brenda, why do you feel the need to call me? Because I felt like she didn't trust me. And she responded and said, well, I know you're really busy, so I just wanted to nudge you to get to the top of your list again. And that really, it bugged me because I was like, oh, these people just want to be at the top of my list all the time. But what happens is a bottleneck. And I kept deflecting the actual underlying issue. And I just kept getting mad and frustrated with my clients. And so, we ended the call. I said, I promise you, as soon as I know anything, I'm going to let you know. And I hung up. I was annoyed that she continued to call me and she felt like she had to be at the top of my list. And as I spent the evening reflecting, it took me a while, but I realized I was the problem. It's not my clients. My clients don't know what to expect. And if I don't make proper expectations, they're going to call me to make sure that they're at the top of their list. And so that afternoon, I got a text message from my pharmacy that my prescription was ready to pick up. It was almost like divine intervention from the universe. Not the pills I was getting, but the text message. So I got that text message and it started to occur to me that, oh, I don't actually have to call the pharmacy to know when my prescription's ready for pickup. They text me to tell me. And then the next morning, I got a text message from my health insurance company, Kaiser, that they were going to charge my card that day. And then I got another text message that said from Comcast that they're going to charge my bill. And so what I started to realize was all of these big companies, they automate their communication. They let me know what to expect and when, so that I don't have to bug them. And so I was like, okay, this is what I needed to hear from the universe today was there are ways to handle your clients and your communication so that they feel safe and secure. But I had to figure out how to get through that process and get over my ego, because my ego told me that my clients only want to hear from me. And what I learned was my clients don't want to hear from me. They just want to know that the transaction is under control and things are safe for them. So as I paid attention to more automation and what big companies around me were doing, like I said, my doctor texts me. In Denver, our title companies will text us when they get earnest money or when a title commitment's ready to review. Lenders, when the buyer's file goes back to underwriting for clear to close, you get a text message. When the file is cleared to close, you get a text message. When the appraisal's ordered, you get a text message. So you know exactly where you are in the process and you don't have to wonder about it. I mean, and it goes even down to retailers. I bought a couch from Crate and Barrel a while ago, and they texted me and told me when it was going to be delivered. So as I paid attention more, I knew that getting some client communication automation in place was really, really important, as well as getting some other automation inside my business. So when I was looking at the next transaction that I did, I wanted to pay attention to what happened in the transaction, where the communication gaps were, and what things that I could solve for my clients to make the process easier. And I came up with this Venn diagram, and it's called the hub disconnect. And you'll see in the Venn diagram, there's actually nothing filled in because that's where the disconnection happens. So when our clients hire us, they look to us for all of the information. They look to us to connect them to an inspector, a lender, any repairs that need to be done, a handyman, all of those things. They rely on us because we do this every single day. And so when they're asking us for referrals, they assume that the referring or the referral is also communicating with us, and that often doesn't happen. So I noticed that when I put a property under contract with a new buyer, I said, hey, Susie, we're now under contract. They've accepted your offer. The next step is to get the inspection scheduled. The last time that we worked together, you hired Martin to do your inspection. I still really like Martin. Do you want me to set up the inspection with Martin, or do you want to find your own inspector? And 9 times out of 10, they want to work with the vendor that we work with because they trust us. So I reach out to Martin and I say, hey, Susie's under contract on this property. Can we get an inspection done? And he goes, yeah, sure, I can do Tuesday at noon. Well, what happens is he asks me for Susie's contact information. He reaches out to Susie, schedules the inspection, collects payment, does the contract, all that stuff. And then on my side, I reach out to the listing agent, we get access scheduled, and then we move on. Well, we didn't close the loop of communication because Martin was actually the hub of the communication because he's the inspector. So Sunday night, Susie's like, oh shoot, when is inspection? And she's going through our communication, our text messages, our emails, and she can't find it because she didn't schedule it with me. She scheduled it with Martin. But in her mind, I'm the hub because I'm her agent. So she's trying to find it. She can't find it. And then by 8:30 or 9 o'clock, she finally texts and goes, hey, what time is inspection on Tuesday? And then as a business owner, I'm frustrated because I'm getting a text at 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night when I'm trying to hang out with my family or have some downtime. But then I feel this tension because I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't provide the service to my client. She doesn't even know when her inspection is. And so there's this breakdown in the communication. And this happens with almost every service provider or every step of the transaction. So we had to figure out a way to close that loop. And by closing the loop, you just accept that as the agent, you are the hub of the communication. So everything, even if it's not a service you're providing, needs to be scheduled with you so that the client has a really great experience. And I'll go deeper into that, but that's what happened in most of these transactions is they expected us to be the hub, and we don't treat ourselves as the hub because we treat the client as the hub because it's their transaction. So I put this quote on here. I don't choose to automate because I don't care. I care, so I automate. And I was so nervous that if I moved a lot of my standard communication to automation, that my clients were going to not like it, or they would feel like I don't care about them, or all of these things. that I was telling myself. And really it came down to my ego. I wanted to be the one to send a text message that says, hey, we have inspection scheduled, or hey, the window cleaner's coming, or whatever it is. But I would be so busy, I couldn't send the text message. So then they wouldn't get the information until late, or when they asked me for it. And then I felt the tension because I wasn't proactive enough. And so when I was worried that people were going to know that I automated, they were going to not hear from me. So that was my worry. But really, the truth of it is if I have an automation set in place or a machine running as the foundation of my business, they know that they're going to get communication as things happen. They don't have to wonder what's going on. And then above that foundation, we have an admin team, a transaction coordinator that are handling things. And then the top layer is me, the face of the business. So what ends up happening is I create this insane amount of security with my clients, because they know at the end of the day, there's David who is running the show. My face is on the sign and the marketing and all of that. But behind me is a really great admin team who's handling things. And then behind them is the automation and the machine that's running. So literally, there's no way anything can fall through the cracks, because there's always somebody or something keeping things on track, versus me saying, I'll let you know, no news is good news. And then they go, oh my gosh, David is so busy. Is there really nothing going on? Or should I remind him that we have this coming up and I need to know the answer? I need to schedule movers. And I just had to pull myself out of it and go, okay, I know the best way to run the business. I just need to empower the right pieces of automation or machine or people to get things running the right way. And most of it comes down to automation, because automation can be run for really cheap. And you already know all the things in your brain that have to happen. You just have to document them and get it running. So the first thing I want to talk about is the first 5. So Heather and I came up with the first 5, and it's the first 5 automations that any team leader or team member or single agent should be running inside of their business. And 1 through 3 tie together, and then 4 and 5 are separate. So the first thing you need to be doing, in our opinion, that sounds really bossy, but this is our opinion, of course. So having a lead sheet, a master lead sheet in place. So this means that you have probably 4 or 5 or 10, depending on the size of your team or your business, different lead sources running or marketing campaigns going. And those could be Zillow, Realtor.com, Google ads, Facebook ads, any pay-per-click, anything like that. And so when you have those lead systems running, the leads come in and then hopefully they go into your CRM. What I would like you to do is have that information go into a Google sheet that only you have access to, or if you have an admin, they have viewer access only. And what that does is when you have all of the leads go into a Google sheet before it goes into your CRM, you see all the leads in one place. So if you have a team member that closes a transaction that they don't say is a team deal, you or your admin can quickly reference to make sure it wasn't a team deal. If the CRM got tagged wrong or got manipulated, you might miss out on revenue. So that protects your revenue and it protects your return on investment. The second thing it does is if you want to take all of those leads and put them into a new CRM or a new mailing system, you have it all in one place already. So it saves a step of having to export and then re-import into a system. And lastly, if you change CRMs or you get locked out of a CRM for some reason, you have all the data somewhere else protected. So that one master lead sheet serves multiple purposes to protect you, your investment, your business. Second thing with those leads is when they go into the CRM, I would really love if you had an automation set up that they get tagged appropriately to be on your email contact list right away. Because we know right now in the world, email, there's tons of money being made in email marketing. So make sure that you're hitting them right away with all the email marketing and the things that you offer, instead of just going into your CRM and then you forget about them. And then the last thing with those same leads, I would love if you would have an automation set for them to go into a Facebook retargeting list. So right now we know that the cheapest form of social media marketing is retargeting. And so you may not be doing retargeting today. It may not even be on your list to do for 6 to 12 months from now, but it's something that we should all be doing. And most people don't do it because they don't have the list built. And so if you can build an automation that when your leads come in, they go to the master lead sheet, they get tagged properly in your CRM, and then they go to the retargeting list. When you're ready to launch that campaign, the only thing you have to do is create the marketing. You don't have to track down the list, find the people, export it from the CRM, and then import it into Facebook. You just have to launch it when you're ready. And so a lot of times what we end up doing as business owners is we have this great idea, we want to launch it, but then we don't have all of our ducks in a row on the back end. So then we don't launch it and it just ends up being on our list forever. And then it's something that doesn't get done. So by letting the automation do the heavy lifting, you'll be ready to launch when you're ready to launch instead of getting ready to get ready. The next thing that we're going to go into is the Welcome Home Optimizer. But I just want to stop real quick and see if we have anything, any questions or anything. Heather?
Well, I just had a moment where I made the one-on-one mistake where I just responded to people, but I only responded to you and me and not to them.
Okay.
I would like to announce that. No, I think that I was something I wrote here, but it didn't make it to everybody else, is that when you're talking about the first 5, and then you were diving into the master lead sheet, I think we all know this, but often it's not a lack of leads. I know that, for example, I have a lot of opportunities just from people I meet. When you run an ad, we have a lot of opportunity and leads. It's usually the lack of proper follow-up and follow-through. Now, remember when we heard that a lot of folks are in up to 4 to 6 other agent CRMs? It is funny how we know that, but then for someone to say it, it reminds you you're not the only game. And you know that, there's so many agents, but then when you think about people that are in your CRM, and what type of follow-up and what kind of touches are you actually, incorporating for them? Like, how are you following up and how are you communicating? It reminded me how important your automation for these master leads, making sure they're tagged, making sure that they're getting your emails. That is what I zoned in on and I shared with the group, but I didn't share. I only shared with you and me. So.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing with me. I appreciate that. And now, I love Amy Blaine. Banna is efficiency defined. So yes, thank you, Amy. All right, perfect. Well, then let's roll into the Welcome Home Optimizer. So when I shared this privately last week, this probably was the number one thing that people cared about and wanted to learn about more. And it was funny because I almost didn't throw this in the presentation because I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but I'm excited that it was, and I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into it. So Welcome Home Optimizer was born from the fact that pre-COVID, we would do closings together with buyer and seller in the same room. And then the buyers would ask questions like, where's the mailbox? What's the code to the garage? That just naturally happened. So the buyer could get all the information about the house. Well, as we move through COVID and we're out of the COVID world, I know it's not over, but it's winding down. We're still doing our closings separately and the buyers aren't getting the information. And what ends up happening to us as agents is when they're moving in on Saturday, they're like, hey, what's the garage code? And then again, you feel like, oh, I failed. I didn't get the information that they needed. So then I jump on it right away. I'm reaching out to the listing agent saying, hey, what's the garage code to 123 Main Street? And they're like, I don't know. Let me ask the seller. Well, the seller has no care in the world to respond to you in a timely manner because they've got their money. They've moved on. They're in their new house, or they've bet all their proceeds in Vegas on red. Like the last thing that they care about is the garage code at the house that they sold that they no longer own. And so then for me, I took responsibility for that because I didn't tell the client what the garage code was. And then they were frustrated. And what ends up happening for them is they're like, oh, my agent just made $20,000 and can't even give me the garage code. And so there's like this frustration that builds up. And then it never fails. They don't have the garage code. And then they go to check the mail and they don't know what the mailbox number is, and neither do you. And so it just piles on this feeling of failure after the transaction, and it's hard to fix that. So this optimizer prevents most of that. And so what I've done, I'm going to zoom in on it here, is this is a Google form. So the form runs from top to bottom. So usually this part on the right is under this first section. And so all it is we just ask information about the house. We don't ask any contact information because I send this to my listing clients that I can provide, so I can provide that to the buyers that are buying their home. And then I also send it to the listing agents when I'm on the buy side to ask them to have their seller fill it out. So I don't want them to feel like I'm going to talk to their seller directly or anything like that. So that's why there's no contact information in this form. So all I do is ask for, the address, the utility providers, who does trash, when does trash get picked up, mailbox number, where they're going to leave the keys, what are the codes, where are the water shutoffs, any service providers they use, and then any additional information about the home that they'd like to share. Because typically sellers love to talk about the neighbors or something cool about the house that maybe isn't part of the typical transaction. And so I let them fill that all out. That would all normally have been shared at the closing table, pre-COVID, but now I can collect it all here. And this serves two purposes. I have all the information now saved forever. So if they lose the communication, or if my client loses the communication, I can look back quickly and get it for them. And then when the seller submits the form right here, two things happen. An auto email goes to the team that just says, hey team, this is a robot talking. I put that on all my automated emails so that they are aware that it's an automated email and not myself doing it. And I just say there's a new draft for review for the above mentioned property. Please review and send to the buyers. The second thing that happens here after the auto email is there's an email put directly into my Gmail drafts. And it's all of the information that this seller provided, the utilities, trash pickup, mailbox location, where they're going to put the keys, water shutoffs, and then the additional information. So there's two ways that you can run an automation. You can have it run fully automated from start to finish with no intervention from yourself, or you can build stop checks in place like this one with an email draft. I like to do full start to finish whenever it's just things that my team is handling or is internal communication. If I'm relying on information from other people, like another seller or something like that, I put a stop in place and just have it make a draft instead of sending it, because I want to look at the information that's provided or have a team member look at the information to make sure that there's no typos, because that just looks unprofessional. Like this one, they spelled Comcast wrong and controls wrong. The other thing with this form that one time I had a seller enter in the field and say, I've already provided this information 6 times. So I don't want that going to my client, because then it just makes us all look bad. So there's some points when automation has to have a stop and you need to proofread or check it before you let it go on. And that's one of those things. So this email then just goes out to the buyer once we reviewed it, and then they have all the information, they have it available. And then if they still don't, if they lose the email on move-in day, they can text me and say, hey, what's the garage code? And then I can look it up easily because I've already collected the information. So I reduce a lot of stress in the move-in process for everybody. So next thing for our first 5, or actually the last thing on our first 5 is end of year settlement statements. So most agents send out a settlement statement in January every year of the previous year's transactions as a touch to their client and to provide service. I've committed to that for many, many years. And it always was a struggle on January 20th because I couldn't find the forwarding address for the seller because I moved out of state, or I couldn't find the settlement statement in my file, or the one that I had was, the scan was bad, or whatever it is. So now we just work on it throughout the year so that when we're ready to send it in January, it's just ready to go. And so the way that I've done it is it's a pretty simple automation. I have a transaction spreadsheet right here, a tracker of all my transactions through the year. And then the automation kicks off when I change the status of the transaction to closed. So once it is closed, then Zapier knows that it needs to pick up the data and drop it into my settlement spreadsheet tracker. So that's this spreadsheet. So the way that I've built the spreadsheet is I've just made everything red that I don't want to touch, that Zapier handles, and then everything that's white and blue is what we fill in. So it will drop the property address here. It will tell me when it closed, if it's a buyer or seller. And then myself or the admin team will fill in the client name and the address that we should send the settlement statement to. From there, we have one Google file that's a PDF that the goal of it at the end of the year is to be a print ready file. So we put the letter in the file first. So it's just like, hey, at the end of the year or at the beginning of the year, we know it's tax time, and some of these expenses that you incurred when you purchased or sold your home may be tax deductible or whatever. So we've included your settlement statement for your CPA. So it'll be that letter. And then the next page in the PDF is the settlement statement for the first person on the list. And then we put a letter, and then we do the next settlement statement. And then we just build that throughout the year. So then in January, when we're ready to send this out, we have a full print ready file. So we print that. And then we have all of the addresses and everything from the spreadsheet. So we do a mail merge and print all the envelopes. And then the envelopes print in the same order as the settlement statements to make it idiot proof, basically. And all we have to do is look at the settlement statement and make sure the name matches the envelope. And then we stuff it, stamp it, and send it. Versus in January, trying to find all the addresses, make the mail merge, print the letters, print everything, keep it all organized. We just keep it all in one file, and then we make it a print ready file when we're ready to send those out at the end of the year. Oh, Amy says, what day do you have these sent out? Amy, do you mean the settlement statements? What do you think she means, Heather? We'll wait for her to type. But
Yes.
Okay, yeah. We just send them out before January 31st. I try and do them like January 20th, kind of the same like time when W-2s and everything else go out for taxes. Okay, so those are the first 5 of the automations that should be built, in our opinion, that are super easy to build. Once you do 1 or 2, you'll start to really expand your mind and see what else can be done. But if you have those things in place, they reduce a lot of stress off of you because it's something that you do every time. But if you have an automation in place and it does it every time for you, you're not spending any time and you don't have to hire most of this out. So the next thing that I'd like to move into is the listing launch process. And I want to show you how I've automated pre-launch from the appointment through going live on the market. But before I do that, I'll pause again and see if you have any questions, any thoughts from Heather.
My sentiment stays similar in that I'm blown away at what you've been able to automate, what you and Vada have been able to automate, and what you've been able to add into your other businesses. So not a lot. I'm just excited to continue to move forward and show people what you have in place. As far as questions, people, there's not anything at this very moment that we need to dive into.
Cool. All right. Well, let's go listing launch. Listing launch. Here we are. So the transaction journey from the listing perspective, there's really 4 phases here. So it's pre-launch, live, pending, and close, and that's all right here in the middle. Whenever I hit a new point in the transaction or the beginning point, I use a form to kick that off. And so the form is really just a questionnaire that gives me and the team all the information that we need in order to move forward. And when you submit the form, it will start an automation, it'll build an email, it'll build a text, whatever you want it to do. But then when the form gets submitted, all the information goes into a table that's easy to find later when you need it. So that's why I'm a big fan of forms versus tagging something somewhere in a CRM or something. Some people like to tag, and that's totally cool. This is just the way that it works for my brain. So we use a form to kick the journey off, and then it notifies all the appropriate team members. It notifies accounting that we have a new transaction that we need to get ready. And then long-term, once you close the file, you'll do one more form that moves them into the settlement statement mailer, into the client love process, and all of that. So this form that we're going to talk about is just for pre-launch, sorry, not pre-launch, launch, before we go live. So when I do listing appointments, my goal in the listing appointment, if I want to work with them, is to get the listing agreement signed when we're face to face. So if we get the listing agreement signed, I immediately open up the launch form and fill it out with them. I'm going to zoom in on it in just one second. I will tell you that all of my forms are saved into one web page, and then I have that shortcut saved on my phone and my iPad so that I can open it easily and fill the information out that I need instead of trying to fumble through and log into something. The other thing on a side note is if you build a form for a lead intake, it's really great to do that and keep the shortcut on your phone, because most CRMs, if you want to do a lead intake, the apps are kind of clunky and it asks you for a lot of information that you don't necessarily need. But if you build a form for lead intake, you can open it up and just enter the information that you typically ask for, instead of being like, hey, do you have a business card, or can I text you, or whatever. You can fill the form out on your phone and hit submit, and then it'll automatically go to your CRM. So this is very similar to that. So off of my tangent now, back to launch process. So here's the form that we fill out once we've agreed to work together. So we put the address in here, the owner's name, the email address for the clients, and then we fill in all the dates. And for the purposes of this presentation, I picked all the same dates for everything so that I didn't confuse myself later, thinking I needed to get a cleaning scheduled or something. So you'll see that I put everything for June 7th. And then when you hit submit, multiple things happen behind the scenes, and then some things client-facing happen. So when I hit submit, for every service provider that is attached to one of these tasks that does email, it automatically emails that provider and says, we have a new contract or a new property coming to market. The address is this address, and we need you to do the window cleaning on this date. Do you have availability? Or we need you to do the carpet cleaning on this date. Do you have availability? So then it all goes to the appropriate people so they can start working on getting scheduled, and I'm still sitting in the appointment, or I'm finishing up the appointment. The next thing that happens is, if we have vendors that we use that don't use email, like our cleaner, for example, will only schedule via text. Everybody that doesn't use email, another email is created that goes to the team that says, we're launching this listing, please schedule cleaning for this date, please schedule photography for this date, and the handyman for this date. And so then the team knows that they need to be working on something, and then the vendors that we work with, they're working on it, and then they'll start responding to confirm the schedule. And then the last thing that happens after hitting submit is there's a 2-hour delay, and then an email goes directly to that client that just recaps the schedule. So it just says recap launch schedule. It says, here's everything that we're working on for these dates. And then once we get everything confirmed, we'll send you a confirmation email. So I put a 2-hour delay on this email for 2 reasons. The first reason is, if I need to go in and make quick changes, I can. The second thing that happens is you're proving to your clients that you are providing the service that you promised. So Sharon a lot of times says proof over promise. So this email going to them lets them know that you've already got everything into action that you promised within 2 hours. And so that gives them immediate security that you've got it under control. Everything's going to be okay. And if they know it's automated, cool. If not, cool. It doesn't really matter. This is just the first step of you cementing that relationship, that everything is under control and they made the right choice in hiring you. So from here, all of the information that came from that form goes into this data table, and the data table looks really overwhelming. So I want to go high level, and then I'm going to zoom in on a couple of things. So when the information comes into the data table, the one I filled out is highlighted here in red. There's a few things that happen. The dates that you put in are right here in each column. You can see that there's this column, this column, this column, and then there's a checkbox next to it. So the team knows that they work off of this table, and they're waiting for responses from the vendors, or they're scheduling things. So when they schedule something, we had something for June 2nd at 10 a.m. The vendor confirmed a 10 a.m. appointment. And so then they check the box. That means it's confirmed, we're good to go. Anything that says 12 a.m. means that it was filled in by the form. And obviously we're not working at 12 a.m. So we know as a team that we need to work on getting that confirmed, and we need to figure out why it's not confirmed yet. As a team leader, I can look at this table, and if I'm missing a lot of check marks, like as you can see in this form I know that either the team isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing to get things confirmed, or if I'm missing a lot of check marks from one vendor in a column like cleaning, I know the cleaner's not responding. So then I can work with them to figure out what's going on. So this is a really high level scoreboard to know if things are running efficiently or not. And then I can jump in and fix them. And then the other thing it does is anybody can log in and look at the table and know where we are. So nobody has to call me and wait for me to respond, or I don't have to call an admin. So the table does a lot of really good things with keeping the team moving forward. Now, once the team or I or whoever gets everything confirmed in this table, all the boxes are checked across the board. So you can see that these are all checked. Now, on the right-hand side, there's a little drop down that says send calendar invites. So this is where we connect the client communication hub. So normally, when a vendor or inspector gets something scheduled, we just go, yeah, it's Tuesday at noon, and we move on. But by putting a calendar invite together, it goes into their Gmail calendar or whatever calendar they're using, and it goes into our calendar as well. So we've got everything for the transaction in one place, but they have access to it too. And calendar invites are literally nothing new. Like these have been around in corporate America probably longer than I've been alive. Well, I don't know if the internet was around then, but anyway, what I'm saying is it's nothing. We're not doing rocket science here, but by us just sending the calendar invite, it just removes so much stress from them wondering what's going on. And then if Vanna on the TC side reaches out to schedule something, or I reach out to schedule something, they don't have to know what email to search to find the information because we've made a calendar invite for literally everything for them. So we say yes to the calendar invite, and then you'll see that on the next slide here, I'm going to zoom out before it'll let me move on. In the Zapier, it has this thing that says send pending records. This will light up when it has information to send, but you have to confirm to send it. So I don't have the calendar invite automatically automate. I want the team to check yes, and then look at all the dates and times one more time to make sure it all is right, and then click send pending records. And the reason why I do that is because when you send a calendar invite and then you update it, they get another email. And so it's just a little clunky, and I want it to be as seamless as possible. So once it sends the calendar invite, I put all these, as you know, on one date. It just sends the calendar invite. It says, you know, we have they're hard to see because they overlapped, but we have the staging appointment, photography, all these things, whatever they are. And it puts the time in for me. I built the automation to make the time of the appointment for the typical time each appointment lasts. And inside of the calendar invite, it provides information about what to expect at each appointment. So for the staging appointment, it tells them exactly what the stager is going to do. It tells them what to expect when the house is getting cleaned, so that they have the information readily available. And I send that email, or I send that information in an email. I put it in the calendar invite, and then later you're going to see I send it in a text. I don't want them to have to search for the information. I put it in as many places as possible for them. So all the calendar invites go out, all based off of the team checking yes and send the pending records. But all this information is from the initial listing appointment when we submitted that form. So that's why I say use a form, because you can use all the information in a repeatable fashion to make your life easier. So I'll stop. I see some questions, and then I'll show the text messages that go out.
Yeah, so David, we have two questions here. One is from Sarah. She just wanted to confirm, which forms are you using? Are they out of Zapier?
That's a great question. So our Welcome Home Optimizer was built on Google Forms, and then Google goes into Zapier. Our launch process was built on actual forms by Zapier. And the reason why I've changed over to running everything off of the Zapier platform is because Zapier used to connect two pieces of software together, to get the automation done. Now that Zapier hosts a lot of the information, I want as much as I can to be in one spot and then have Zapier send it to wherever I need it to go versus pulling it from something, being in the hub, and then sending it out.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's a wrong answer or a right answer on that. That's just the way that I've done it.
Yeah. And Sarah, something that you may not have heard from one of our previous webinars is Zapier has recently created the ability to build this within their own platform, right, David? You had shared that with us. So in the past, Zapier was only a connector between two different softwares. Now they're actually allowing you to utilize forms that they host natively on their own platform. So it's a newer aspect. But like David mentioned, there's no wrong answer. If you already have a lot built in your current platform, then you can just use Zap as the connector, or you can build it natively within theirs, whatever works best for you.
Right.
And so you're a little bit of a mix, just depending on how you're set up.
Right. Yeah. I don't want to take the time to rebuild things. So unless I need to, so I want them wherever they are. And then the other part, the question I get a lot is like the forms that I host. So I have some forms on Google and then some forms on Zapier. You can get this is a little bit further ahead, but you can get the HTML code from Google or from Zapier to embed on whatever page you're going to put all those forms. So it doesn't matter if you want to blend 2 or 3 different types of forms, they can also go on that one page to make your life easier.
Exactly. Yeah. For some of you, and I know this question has come up in the past, for those of you that don't have a lot of automations and softwares built yet, then I tend to lean towards choose one, right, that you love, and then move forward in making that consistent. If you kind of are a blend already, for those of you that have willingly embraced technology in the past, or you're just pretty seasoned in your career, so you have different aspects available that have already been created, then David's sharing, it's not a big deal. Just create the Zap and you can make all of those blend. So if you have some forms, but what I mean by that is if you have some forms built in Google, if you have new connections you're going to be creating and you want to make those within Zapier, and then maybe you have some other forms within your CRM, it's okay. He can help you make all of those work together with not a lot of headache. It sounds like a headache, but it's actually not.
Right.
Amy also had a question just from way back, David. She just wanted to know, she said, first of all, what a great way to be a hero. This is all the way back to your TC business. And when you guys sent that summary of all of their transactions, she just wanted to know, if you guys called your agent database to let them know that you'd be sending that summary for them.
So I don't, when I send them out to my clients, I don't call them. I mean, I'm already in communication with my clients, so it's not an extra touch. They just get it in the mail. But it would be a good, I suppose it could be a good touch point either way, a text or a call to let them know it's coming.
Yeah. And I can share that, like, what's amazing about that and what you're sharing with us in the real estate standpoint. I've never had a transaction coordinator that's been that high level. And what's amazing is it's not taking any more time out of your guys' day to be that amazing. So,
exactly.
Which is what you're showing us here on the real estate side. So
yeah. And that's a really great point in the fact that when we are working with clients who have worked with other realtors before us, and then they hire us, and then we do all of these things, they're like, oh, Jenny never did that for me. And then you become the, oh my gosh, you do that, you do that, you do that. And then you get that raving fan out of them.
yes.
So the last thing that I want to show you in this listing launch automation that happens, I told you some behind the scenes stuff that happens when emails go to the vendors. I showed you the auto email that goes to the seller, letting them know what we're working on. And then we have these calendar invites once we confirm all of the appointments. The day before the appointment, they get an email reminding them, but then the morning of every single appointment, they get a text message through our CRM. And this can be set up with any CRM with texting capability. So the way that it works is Zapier reads that data table. And if there's an appointment for that day, so let me back up. It reads the appointment table every day at 3 a.m. is what I set it up for. And if there's an appointment at on that day for any one of my transactions that are running, it will then send the information to the CRM to tag the client with the appropriate appointment that's happening. And then at 8:05 a.m., the CRM texts the client with a quick reminder. So I'll show you how these look. So when the stager is going out, the text message says, "Hey, hi David, we just wanted to remind you that the stager will meet you at your home today. Feel free to respond to this text if you need anything." This text doesn't come from me, it comes from the team, and the client knows it comes from the team. So we haven't even gone on the market yet. This is usually between 5 and 10 days of going on the market. So they're already getting used to the fact that I'm reaching out to them with information. The team is scheduling things. The team, they know that they can reach out to the team if they have any issues. So I'm just building that security as we move through the transaction. And then you'll see, they said, "Oh, awesome, we love David." I may have wrote these text messages, but regardless. So then the next one that goes out is when the cleaners are going. So it just says, "Hello, don't forget the cleaners will be at your house today. Will you please do a quick walkthrough with them before they leave to make sure that they didn't miss anything?" I've found that by sending some quick messages like this, it empowers them to tell the vendor like, "Hey, you missed this," or "Can you clean this up?" instead of them feeling like they have to call me later to tell me the cleaner missed something. And then again, I'm like, "Oh, I'm not doing a great job because the cleaner didn't do a good job." I'm just letting them know, just have the conversation, because once they leave the house, they're done, and you're telling me that the house is good to go. Next one that goes out is when the window cleaner goes out. So it just says, "Good morning, quick reminder, the window cleaner will be at your house today. He usually takes about 3 hours, and he'll be cleaning the tracks and screens too." And then that person said, "Oh, you're the best. We should pay David more commission." And then the last one is photos. So as listing agents, we know that photo day is like the most important day. We get one shot at it unless we pay to reshoot. So we have a checklist built, and the text message, it goes out, it just says, "Hi David, don't forget we have photos today. We can't wait to show up your home. Here's the photo checklist in case you need it." So this checklist is included in email communication, it's included in the calendar invite, and then I make a link easy for them to get from their phone, because I really want them to review it one more time before photos happen. Now, I go to the house before photos happen, but if it's a complete wreck, then it's really stressful on me. So I want them to be empowered to get the house as ready as possible for the photos. And then that takes stress off of them and me. So that's the last text in pre-launch. And then as we go live, there's other texts and emails and automations that happen. And I just want to share the process one more time as a quick recap. It seems really overwhelming to get from no automation running in your business to, text messages going out without you having to touch them. And I agree, it is super overwhelming. And you get caught up thinking, "Oh, my clients don't want to hear from me like that," or "How am I ever going to get this built?" And then you just don't do it. And that's what happens to a lot of entrepreneurs. We have these big ideas, and then things, derail us. So I want to share what I failed in building these or where I failed in building these automations, so you don't do the same thing. And then the easiest way I found it. So the first thing I'll tell you is pick one segment of your business or one step that you want to fully automate and focus on getting that done, and instead of trying to get all the forms done and then get all the connections done for the forms. Because what I did was built all the forms. So I had 9 or 10 forms for different things I wanted set up. And then I took all those forms and then I built the simple automation. And then I took all those forms and connected to the CRM. But what I learned was there was something that happened in the connection between the simple automation and the connection to CRM that I didn't like. And so then I had to rebuild a bunch of things instead of just one form and getting it all the way finished. So start with the form for whatever you're going to automate, and then build a simple automation. If that's going to be an email draft, a calendar invite, those are all 1 or 2 step automations that you can build in an automation software. Once that's working and the information is exchanged nicely and you like the way things are formatted, then move to connecting it to your CRM. And then once it goes from form submission through simple automation, connecting to the CRM, and you love that entire process, then fully automate it from start to finish. And once you have that whole thing done, then replicate it on the next phase that you want to work on, instead of trying to do listing from pre-launch to close all at once, because you'll get overwhelmed. And I've found over and over that there's usually one step that I think is going to work the way I want it to work. And then once it's in process, I don't like it's clunky, or I don't like the speed of it, or I don't like the way it's formatted, and I've copied and pasted it, 8 or 9 times, and then I'm just mad at myself. So that's how I would encourage you to do it. And then moving forward, if this is all way too overwhelming to you, but you do want to have automation in your business, you can reach out to Heather and I. We're working on some done-for-you solutions for agents. That's not quite ready to launch, but if you want to be on that first list of people that have access to some things, just let us know. We'd love to help you out with that. And with that, that's the end of Efficiency Unleashed Phase 1.
Yeah, David. So I was lucky enough to watch your initial webinar on this, and even just watching it again, I gleaned more information, and it just reiterated again, like, one, how amazing your brain is, how it processes information. I just love that. It's so amazing. But I also love that when you look at this in its entirety, it is easy to get overwhelmed. But the way that you broke the process down in the end, I love that you gave a guide, because what you're seeing here is many, many, many processes that David has built in many businesses, and they've just continued to build over time. So you're seeing a combination of his processes over time. And yours will get there too, but just start one place. If you create one automation and it just saves you that one text, that's a win, right, David?
Right.
Like that's in itself, that's one less thing that you need to do in your business. So start small and celebrate that. And then you'll see that in no time at all, you're like, holy cow, I actually have this whole system built, and I didn't realize it as I was building these step-by-step processes, right? Like I built the form, and then I created the automation, like David's infographic shows. I built the form, then I built the automation, then I connected to the CRM. And then what was your last step again? I don't have that in front of me.
And then it's fully automated, and then you can start back over.
Yes.
So that's how you build it up. When you were talking the text message thing, one thing that I want to share, not ego or anything else, but one thing that happened to me was I would be like, oh, I want to send this text message that says, don't forget the cleaner's coming, blah, blah, blah. Well, I wouldn't think about that until I was driving. And then I'd be like, well, I can't text and drive. That's against the law, and I'm a rule follower. And then I would get to my appointment, and then I'd be like, okay, I'm going to send it after my appointment, because I don't want my clients to feel like I don't care about them because I need to send this text. And then I would immediately leave the appointment. And then I was back in that loop of in the car, and I can't send this text. And then the text would just never happen. So if you feel that pain of, I'm going to do that later, I'm going to do that later, and then it never happens, this will alleviate a lot of that. And you will be amazed at how much time you have back, but things are happening for you just by building a few small things.
Absolutely. And we're coming to time here, but I just want to let you guys know that I did throw our email address in the webinar chat. If you are interested in gaining a little guidance in creating your automations, then you're welcome to join us in the beta testing. And the beta testing, you can request to be considered for the beta testing by sending us an email, vip@realgoodlife.co. So just wanted to throw that out there. And then we want to let you know that if this feels overwhelming, you can reach out, you can ask us questions. And then like David mentioned, and like we're talking about through the beta testing, we're working on done for you processes, because we know that ultimately your goal is to get back to what you do, which is running your business. And your goal for most of us is not to be the automations expert, the Zapier expert. You just want it done so that you can go back to creating a high level experience for your clients.
Right.
Amazing, cool. David, as always.
Well, thank you everyone who's here today. I appreciate you.
We appreciate you guys. We'll send you the follow-up replay. And then I can't get into it too much today because we are at time, but we have an amazing guest next. Is it next week or 2 weeks from now that we have?
Next week on the
It
21st.
is next week. That's right. Okay. So amazing friend, Jessica Forster. She is a team lead. She also runs a vacation rental business. She works in what is both a primary and a resort market in Florida. One of my good friends. So she will be co-hosting the next webinar, and I can't wait. She's just a rock star. And then also something I want to share with you guys, it's in follow-up to this. Dave and I have a treat for you as far as follow-up to this and information, because I know there's a lot of questions happening in all of your brains right now. So if any of you that are on this webinar, I know that you're having a lot of questions like, how does this fit with what I've built? How exactly does this fit with my specific CRM? Like, can any CRM work? How does this work with my project management? Because I have Asana, ClickUp, etc. Those are all really great questions, and something that, one, the answer is actually more simple than you probably think. And then two, David and I are, we've been working through that process because that is me. I already have a lot of those third parties. And so we're happy to share those results as just a gift to you guys to let you know that, yes, David has thought through this process about somebody that has, like we mentioned from the very beginning of this, some of you have a lot built out, some of you don't have a lot of automations built out, and he's thought through the process thoughtfully about how it can work for any of you in any phase. And as a treat, he and I might work on a little bit of showing you how that worked for me, which is how my business is set up on the background is really separate than his, but yet we're still able to have a very similar result of this automation. So
Right. Yeah, it's going to be exciting. I love that you call it a treat.
it is. I consider it a treat because efficiency it should be considered. I would like you guys to send me a follow-up in any message format if you agree with me. I would like to make a movement that efficiency should be added as the 7th love language. So just if any of you are in support of that, send me a message. We could start a movement. We could create a petition. I'll go back to Gary Chapman, who wrote that book, The 5 Love Languages. And as you know, we added a 6th. He didn't, but we did. That's being known. And then I say that we petition for a 7th.
Yeah, I'm sure he's just waiting for feedback. So we should get that done.
So anything regarding efficiency is a treat in my book. All right, guys, thanks for joining us. We'll see you
Have a
next
great day,
week.
guys.